Hello, thank you for joining us on My Business, Your World. I am Dr. Graham. We're a management consulting firm that offers a diverse array of consulting services, which includes some HR training, business planning, business development, and we help you to make your business more successful and profitable. Today, we want to bring you this program because we wanted to focus on some of the needs of businesses that will help them to understand better their business operation for a more profitable and successful business. We understand the challenges of businesses in today's economy, and we're trying to help get a compelling message out to allow businesses to take the risk and to enable them to be more successful. Today, our guest is Ms. Sharon Davis. Ms. Sharon Davis, I apologize. And Sharon comes to us with over 30 years of experience in insurance, employee benefits, and financial services. Ms. Davis is a CEO of C.J. Edwards Incorporated and successfully oversees the negotiation, development, and implementation of retirement plans and voluntary benefits for many organizations and individuals. Ms. Davis launched the Freeport-based, New York-based S.J. Edwards back in 2005 to help families and businesses plan, prepare, and protect their financial future. She's most renowned for her steadfast long-term relationships she has with many of her clients. Ms. Davis' career began with John Hancock Life Insurance back in the 80s, and later transitioned to E.G. Bowman Insurance Company. And E.G. Bowman is the largest MWBE organization and actually one of the first minority-owned business to be on Wall Street. Ms. Davis also worked with Aetna in a number of senior managerial diverse portfolios, and one of those responsibilities included the Roman Catholic charities, Roman Catholic Diocese of Brooklyn and Queens 401(b) retirement plan. Ms. Davis is a recipient of the 2011 100 Black Men of Long Island and the TD Bank Leadership Award in a Small Business, and also the recipient of 2013 LIBN Top 50 Most Successful Women. She's also the VP for the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce. In spite of all this, Ms. Davis shares that her greatest accomplishment is being a devoted mother to Danielle, a devoted daughter, a loving sister, and a doting grandmother to Dominique and Marissa. Ms. Davis, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Dr. Graham.
So how's your week been?
Great. Very busy. A lot of preparation for things coming up down the road and in terms of healthcare reform. So we're trying to get ourselves all together for that. So it's been a very busy week.
I know you typically do workshops, and you probably have a couple coming up to help with that. What kind of deadlines are you looking at?
Well, we already have them scheduled for October 22nd, October 29th, and November 5th. The 22nd, I believe, is in Riverhead. The 29th is in Rockville Center, and November 5th in Plainview.
Okay, wonderful. Now, anything in specific or that we need to know about these workshops that you have coming out?
No, it's just if you're in need of education regarding healthcare reform and how to make sure that you stay in compliance, we're encouraging businesses as well as individuals, if they're interested, to attend the workshop so they'll find out about all of the requirements that are coming up, the requirements that have already been implemented, and how they will stay in compliance.
Wonderful. Tell me a little bit about how you started your journey.
Well, I started out actually, Dr. Graham, as a part-time telemarketer for a firm called Unique Programs, Inc. Lou Lunetto was the president of that company. And what I had to do was one of the toughest jobs in the business. That's going through a list of companies, setting up appointments. It's like cold calling. And setting up appointments for the representatives who would go out and make appointments and make sales. And one day the president came over to me and he said, I think that you need to get your licenses because you're doing such a great job setting up these appointments. The guys are making money. Why not split some of the commissions with them? So I studied for my life insurance license, my health insurance license, and the rest is history.
Well, can I hire you to do some cold calling for me, please?
No.
Wow. What are tell me three people who have contributed to your success.
Well, first and foremost, my parents, who have always been my rock and have always encouraged me to follow my dreams. They set me up with a foundation that basically said, always give 100% no matter what you're doing. And treat people the way you want to be treated. Live by that golden rule. Another friend of mine, Anthony Izzo, who is the president of a company called Benefits Planning Corporation, who I've had a relationship with for many, many years. I actually worked with him for about 15 years. He has been a mentor, and what he taught me was the secret to success is sharing and helping others. And the third person, I think, would be Arthur Padras, another longtime friend of mine who, when I was going through struggles and challenges, would always encourage me and say, Sharon, just stay above the fray. You're not normal. You have to understand that. Stay above the fray.
All right, I want to go back a little bit when you shared about the telemarketing aspect of business. And today it's still very critical. It hasn't changed much, I'm going to say, since you started. There are some nuances, I would imagine, that changed, and that probably has to do with more technology and how you can actually get the database of information
Correct.
that you have, you can access.
Correct. When I started, it was the Yellow Pages, or just a list of companies. Now you can go online. There are companies that will provide you with a database with all the email information, the address, the phone numbers, all of that. But basically, telemarketing is a very critical part, as you said, of the sales process. And it's important to do that in addition to the other marketing initiatives you might take.
Right. I know that for when you look at sales, obviously it's a direct complement to making those calls, and wading through those database is also a challenge because some of those lists are not really credible. One of the recommendations I always make to small business owners is go through to the local government or not-for-profit facility, because they usually have, most small businesses or all businesses have to do some kind of reporting. So if you want to get relatively accurate information, you have to go through
Correct.
those pieces. Now, I'm interested because I went to a workshop several months ago, and one of the very successful representatives shared that it took, for example, they hired a telemarketer, paid a flat rate, and then whatever they made or took in terms of business, they would get a commission. But it took that person either, I'm a little off on the number, either 100 calls for the week or 100 calls for the day.
Probably the day.
To be able to get that. Was the same amount of energy that you had to, or was it a little bit more challenging to kind of get through? Back then, I don't know, did most people have telephones in their homes that you, or I guess if depending on what product you were trying to get them to get those personal investments going?
Well, I was calling small businesses.
Okay.
The list, like I said, was from the Yellow Pages. So it was difficult, and you had to make at least 100 calls a day, not 100 calls a week. If you make 100 calls a day, you probably will reach maybe 20 people, and you may get an appointment with 1 or 2.
What
Okay.
made you so good at it that they wanted you to take that license?
Well, I always had a sign in front of me that said smile. And people can hear the smile through the phone.
That's absolutely correct.
Yes, and a lot of the reps, when they would go out, said, well, the manager said, where's Sharon? Because I had developed a relationship with him on the phone. So it's very important when you're on the phone to smile. Let people hear you smile through the phone.
Good. You started your career back in 1970, which was one of those time periods, still is today, but I think a little bit more challenging. We had to deal with a lot more glass ceiling and a lot of more challenge for women who were successful or were going to succeed in business. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yes, the 70s was a time when it was difficult for women to succeed in business. It was, unfortunately, just the good old boys network. And even though I was involved in the meetings, a lot of times I felt invisible because the conversation usually occurred between the men around the table. So most women felt like we were invisible around the table. Now, if you were a sports fan or if you played golf, you may have had a better shot. But basically, it was the good old boys network. So we had to work a lot harder, and we had to be 3 times as good as the men. So that was a reality then. And it's still kind of a reality now. It's just, like you said, we've broken some of the glass ceiling. Hopefully we'll keep breaking that.
So tell me some things that you did to differentiate yourself as a woman back then, because I'm thinking that I'm from, I guess, a little bit of the old school where I believe that most of the core still stay the same. It's good work, it's hard work, it's if you have something that you have to prove or you believe in, you have to go above and beyond in order to accomplish it. Could you share a little bit more about any specific, for example, without probably disclosing individual or organization, any one specific or two example that helped to champion you along the way? I know you shared 3 individuals that helped you to guide you through in terms of some of the challenges that help you with your personal and professional development, but any story that resonated with you back in that period while you were, venturing out
As a woman in business?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I realized early in the game that I was very different, and I had to think out of the box. And one of the things that I did was I really started to drive myself towards motivational speakers, because what they do is they put you in a different place than the average person. And I knew that I had to listen to people like Zig Ziglar. He was very popular at that time. But the other thing that I did was I started reading books. And one of my favorite books was The Power of Positive Thinking by Norman Vincent Peale, which is based on believing in yourself, having faith in your abilities, and walking into the room with as much self-confidence as possible. And that book really impressed me so much that I decided to read it once a year. And that got me through a lot. I did the exercises in the book. He has some great exercises. And I also just wrote a lot of the information out. Now, that book, along with Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, got me through a lot. Now, Napoleon Hill had 2 principles that I really think worked for me. One was to write down my goals and post them around the house. So I would do that. When I would look in the mirror, I'd have my goal up there for the day. And every day, faithfully, you had to look at these goals. And that's like auto-suggestion, which means you're constantly putting positive thoughts into your head. The other thing that he did that really changed my life a couple of years ago is he encourages you to start a mastermind group, which means surrounding yourself with people that do things that you don't. So what that does is it really expands your operation. So now you have someone who handles something you don't handle, which increases your client base and also your revenue. But they have to be people you trust, and you should have a written agreement with these individuals as well. But those 2 books, although they were written in 1937 and 1952, they stood the test of time. And those things still apply today. And I still use those principles today.
All right. On a more fun or friendly commentary, so what did Danielle think of all those notes? Did she have any commentaries?
She still thinks I'm crazy. She thinks her mother is abnormal. She knows that, and she loves me in spite of that, yeah. But she's learned a lot from me as well. I remember when we were in the kitchen once when she was about 5 years old, and I was washing the dishes, which was something I still had to do. She said, "Mommy, I want to be like you when I grow up." And that's one of the things that changed my life as well, now that you mention that. Knowing that she was watching what I was doing, that she knew that women could accomplish certain things in life in spite of the challenges.
That's very, very, very refreshing and heartfelt. Now, you mentioned a couple of the books. I wanted to add aside with, in terms of Vincent Peale, one of the book, now I forget who he co-authored that book with, but I think it came up against some backlash.
It was controversial.
And because he partnered with, it was a religious aspect and also taking psychology or psychiatric component of that into that realm, which is so important. And it did very well because you still have to, we're human beings, and the personal social aspect of what it is that we do is important, is critical to work. So I love to continue the conversation. We're getting ready to go to break. Again, Orange Company, it's Graham International. You can visit us at www.grahaminternationalconsulting.com. You can send us an email at info@grahamconsultingandresearch.com, or give us a call at 631-481-9124 if you have any questions for Sharon or myself. We'll see you back in a few minutes. Thank you. Hello, Dr. Graham again. Welcome back to My Business, Your World. We're here again with our special guest, Miss Davis from S.J. Edwards Incorporated. Okay, after the break, we were just before the break. Look at that, I want another break already. We're talking about the impact of actually sharing a little bit about some of the controversies surrounding Vincent Peale and that particular book that you shared. It still does very well. I think it's sold most of its copy back when it was initially published, and a couple millions thereafter to date. But those principles and those core still resonate because we're dealing with individuals. And when you go into business in terms of operation, when you start out as an individual, you kind of have to become organized. You have to understand who you are, what are some of the challenges that you face and you're anticipating. They're critical to not just individuals in terms of the business world, but I think also a lot of benefit should be to individuals in schools or going to school or getting out of high school into college, because their transition and a number of the challenges that they're coming upon makes it very, very difficult for them to actually navigate in the real world when they get out there. What are some of the stories? I know you're with the Long Island, you're the VP for the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce. Do you have any initiatives that you're working on? I know you're also affiliated with or have some relationship with the 100 Black Men Long Island.
Mm-hmm. Well, the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce has a campaign right now for minority and women-owned businesses, which is a passion of mine because of what I went through starting out in the 70s and the challenges and struggles that presented themselves as a result of my being a minority as well as a woman. So there are initiatives out there. Governor Cuomo has mandated that at least 20% of all government-funded contracts should go to minority or women-owned businesses. So we've taken a proactive role, and we're starting to run MWBE certification workshops. We had our first one in August, and we have a wonderful facilitator and instructor. Her name is Charlene Thompson, and we received great feedback from everybody. And what she was doing was getting them online so that they could start their application process, because you have to be certified to participate in the bids for the contracts. You have to be in it to win it, is what I say. So if you're not certified, you're not going to have the opportunity. And there are great opportunities out there as well. We are having another series of workshops in October, and we already have a waiting list of people and businesses that are anxious to attend. So this is our passion. And as I said, because of being a minority and women-owned business, I am excited about the plans that we have in place to help other businesses.
Now, what are some of, I guess, you're also an MWBE. Prior to being an MWBE, I think you had that back in 2013. What is the difference, or what impact has that made to you in terms of the business environment or in your business?
Well, it provides opportunities for me to, have access to opportunities that I may not have had on another basis.
I know. I think when you look at it, sometimes it's with the minority business certification. I have clients who are actually going in and have started the program, and one of the things is, like you shared, you have to be in it to win it. What that means is their contract works with major organizations that you need to capitalize on. And if you're really looking to grow your business or even to sustain, it is very important for you to understand and partner up with, there are many agencies that can help you to get through that.
Correct.
I know it probably is open, it's still short term with a couple of opportunities. Have you seen any benefits or direct benefits from being MWBEs yet? Because I think businesses are sometimes skeptical about, I'm getting the certification, but I'm still not getting anything out of it.
Exactly, and that's why we have met with several government agencies to see what opportunities they have, and they've said to us, where are the minorities? Where are the women-owned businesses? So that's one of the reasons we've taken this proactive role, and we are having the workshops. But you're absolutely right. One of my frustrations was that after I was certified, what do I do now? And the answer was always, go on the websites and find out what's available. I'm trying to run a business, and in addition to that, now I have to go on the website, 50 or 60 websites, to see if there are any opportunities out there for my business. And that's what we're trying to help minorities and women-owned businesses accomplish. We want to make that, we want to simplify that process for them moving forward.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Let's talk about a little bit what made you start your own business. I mean, I touched on that a little bit in the intro, that you saw the need, and basically at the very beginning you had someone saying, well, telemarketing, you're too good for this, let's get you, did all the qualifications or prereqs that you needed to get you to each of those positions, and you transitioned from, I guess, Hancock to E.G. Bowman, then to Aetna. And Aetna seemed like you took on really quite a tremendous role, acting in some senior capacity, so that helped you, I would imagine, hone in on some key relationship and key strategies to go out and decide that you want to help individuals plan for their future in businesses as well, and get that going.
Mm-hmm. Well, Dr. Graham, working for larger corporations, what you realize is the corporations are really looking at the bottom line, and they're looking at the masses. And I did see a need for a more personal touch out there. And I felt that people were not getting the information that they needed. One of the reasons they were not investing in the 403B or the 401k plan was because they had a lack of understanding. Not that they were ignorant, but they had a lack of understanding because the information was not being disseminated in a simple manner. So what I decided to do is I decided to start my own company so that I could now focus on the individual. And what we do is we do encourage them to purchase protection. I call it protection. It's not necessarily insurance. It's called protection for their families and also for generations to come. We want to make sure that they leave a legacy for their children and their grandchildren. So I just felt a passion to talk to the individual rather than talk to the larger organizations, which definitely bring in more dollars. But there was a need for me to educate people on an individual basis. So I did start my company with the knowledge that I would be educating people to protect their families, their business, their assets in a simple manner. And I'll give you a perfect example. When I started out in the financial services industry with Aetna, I worked with the same young man, Anthony Izzo, that I spoke about, and we had Catholic Medical Centers, which was a group of hospitals. And I would go to the hospital and I would tell people about the 403B plan, and they would say, okay, great. The doctors would say, how much can I put in? Can I put in more? But then I go down to the guy who wasn't making as much money, and they would actually run away from me because I was looking for $10 to pay. So what I realized was they didn't understand that if they put money into the 403B plan or the 401k plan, there was a tax benefit. So I explained it like this. I said, if I gave you $10 and, no, if you gave me $10 and I gave you back 13, wouldn't you like that? And they said, yes. So I said, well, that's what the government is doing. You're not paying taxes on $13 now. You're only going to pay taxes on $10. So I realized that there was a need for simplification in that whole process.
You know what's interesting is that still rings true to today. And I'm going to share the story with me when I started out relatively early with the 401k, and not to that extent. I'll jump back on that point in a minute. Hopefully I'll remind me. When I started, I didn't know anything. I was first introduced to what this 401k was. I think the second year of being in that company, I was a young relatively teenage, I'm still 21, and then I invested. I picked my portfolio, and I picked a really good one. Mm-hmm. But then, they always tell you about putting away, maybe it's better to put away a percentage or a set dollar amount and you don't feel the impact. And you honestly don't. And I remember my portfolio did nothing for a while, and that's because they didn't put in what I had asked them, error, mistake, whatever. When they do the enrollments again and so on, you have an opportunity to go in and change it. The rules have changed tremendously, I think, since I remember when I started to date, and had that change around, so on and so forth. But it's so significant, $10. Even in your paycheck, the tax consequences is insignificant.
Absolutely.
You have an opportunity to actually save that you can't ordinarily save when you need to. And depending on the investors that you use, the opportunity to really do very well with that and become very successful. You don't have to take all those risks. But it's people are always scared. It's what do you want my money for? What is the purpose of insurance? What is it that going to do? And then you run into the hitch where you actually need it and it could have helped. But I think sometimes not every probably company hone into that the human aspect of what it is, so that you can sit and teach, so that you can understand. And I think it rings in right back into business. If you don't talk and share and get into and try to listen, if you don't take the risk, it's worse than not taking the risk at all.
But you need to understand that, and that's the whole thing. It's risk versus reward. Okay, if you take more risk, you may earn more, but you are at times going to see it. I always say there's only one guarantee in the stock market. It's going up and it's coming down. And you have to be able to weather the storms. So you're right. Education was key, and we would go out every year and do the enrollment meetings, and we would make a presentation on the importance of tax deferral. And a lot of times this is the only way that most people save, because as soon as you get your paycheck and you take it home, you start paying bills, you don't pay yourself first. So you have to take it out before you even get it in your hands. And they understood that. But again, it was the way that it was presented. And I think a lot of times investment advisors, and myself might be included, we think about fees and administration and all of that instead of really getting down to the nitty-gritty, which is what is it really going to do for me as an individual. And I think that's what was missing.
Let me just talk about that a little bit, if you don't mind, in terms of small businesses. Now, some of the stories and some of the individuals that I meet and I talk to will tell you that small businesses tend to shy away from a lot of things. They don't tell you things. They don't report their income the way it is until they're in that critical condition or circumstances. Then they need something, and it's like, oh, but we did so, and so on and so forth. What should they be doing, or what kind of messages we can get out to them to say these are opportunities for them to actually help to build their cash flow or their equity or in terms of their finances?
Well, it's really an individual choice because every business operates differently. And it's hard to generalize because, as I said, every business has a different characteristic. But they should have certain things in place. They should have some type of a set plan, which is similar to an IRA. They should have a buy-sell agreement if they have a partner. I mean, there are just a lot of things that they should have in place that most of them don't, as you said. But it's based on their individual situation. So we sit down with companies and we go over what we call a discovery worksheet, which asks certain questions, and then we come back with recommendations on what they should be doing in terms of their business to increase their revenue possibly, which could mean cutting back on certain costs, or doing things differently. Since I have a background in business, a lot of times I will say to them, you need to have somebody doing some telemarketing for you. How are you getting your message out to the community? And they can invest a few dollars in that person, but it will bring in more revenue. Right. But in terms of benefits, there are a lot of opportunities out there for them to increase their revenue, pay less in taxes, but they have to really sit down with us and possibly their tax advisor to go over those points.
All right, so let's go back a little bit about, I think I started to ask a little bit about how you started and why we started and we transitioned, and I think I went off about the Vincent Peale whole spiel there. And I know that to me it's very important, it's critical because it's important for you to see the parallel and understand the net relationship and how it helps to benefit and grow individual. You grow individual, you grow your business. Let's talk about why you started and how you started. We'll probably wrap up again if we're going to go into a break. So let's hold that thought. What I'm going to come back and share with you, ask you to share with me about how you started, and then let's go into tell me a little bit about the business, your business. Again, this is your business, my business, your world. You can contact us at 631-481-9124 or visit the website www.grahamconsultingandresearch.com. We'll be back in a few minutes. Thank you. Welcome back to My Business, Your World. Again, our special guest is Miss Sharon Davis, and I apologize for all the blunders and the in and outs and so on, the nuances of doing a new program, but I hope you find it informative. We'll continue our discussion where we left off. We're talking about, maybe tell me a little bit, go back to, if you could back up a little bit about when you why you started S.J. Edwards, and then tell me a little bit about some of the, what S.J. Edwards does with some of their functions and benefits to individuals and the businesses.
Okay. Well, as I said, I saw a need for more of a personal touch in the insurance and employee benefits arena. And I started out, as I said, as a telemarketer. I went into financial services offering 403B and 401k plans. And then it was a natural fit for us to veer into employee benefits for small businesses. And as you know, healthcare reform has been introduced, and it's been around for a couple of years. There was a lot of uncertainty about it. There were a lot of changes. People were very nervous. So last year what I did was I ran some free workshops so that they, again, as I said previously, would know how to navigate the system and to make the best of this opportunity. So that was one of the things that we did. Now, employers have a lot of responsibility now with healthcare reform in that they have to disclose a lot of information to their employees, or they could be penalized.
It's a little bit scary. I know that a lot of companies I facilitated a couple of conferences, and I do a couple of workshops and speaking engagement, but the challenges seem monumentous for them. And is it any better now that it's been out? Or, go ahead.
No, well, this year it should be a little better because hopefully the websites won't crash as much as they did last year. But it's still a challenge because there's still a lot of uncertainty. And small business owners don't have the ability to really evaluate every little detail of healthcare reform. So that's where we come into play. We want to sit down with the employers. We want to go over what they're currently offering, whether or not we can find a way for them to reduce costs, because now they're mandated that some of them have to offer insurance. They can reduce costs and offer gap filler programs, which is what we also do. There's one called hospital indemnity that covers the deductible, because a lot of employers have to now offer a high deductible plan because of the cost factor. But they need something to help their employees handle that deductible. Now, a hospital indemnity plan will do that. Hospital indemnity plan will say, okay, you have a $1,500 deductible. If you go into the hospital, here's $1,500. So now the employer has reduced his costs, but he has not negatively impacted his employees. So that was huge. In addition to that, we also will sit down with each employee and help them enroll employees in their core benefits, which includes their health insurance, their dental insurance, any voluntary plans they may have, and also make sure that all of the documents that need to be distributed to the employees is done, and keep a record so that the employer has a record saying we gave out all of the appropriate documentation and we are in compliance. And that is key, because if they're not in compliance, they could be penalized heavily.
I know a lot of the talk has been it's probably cheaper to take the penalty than it is to be in compliance. How long did it take you to prepare for this, to have it roll out your company, to just be ready to handle what was coming?
Healthcare reform?
Yeah.
Well, we started studying it a couple of years ago because we knew it was coming down. Now, 2013 was the big year. 2014 is an even bigger year. The penalties, there was something called pay or play. And what you had to do was make a decision whether or not you wanted to offer the insurance or not, or pay the penalty. So there are a number of formulas that you have to use. It depends on whether or not you have full-time employees, if you have over 100 employees. There's just a lot of factors involved. So you really need to sit down with a consultant or a firm like mine, go over the numbers, see if it may make sense sometimes not to provide the insurance. But you really need to evaluate that before you make that decision.
I think so also on the individual level that you're not able, if you don't, you also probably have a penalty, so there, you don't win any at all, do you? But I mean, that could be a huge cost for an individual. And I think their enrollment period in the lapse time makes it challenging for them to, if you're in between, I guess, when the next enrollment is. Yeah. I think some people may qualify on their, I guess it's Medicaid. So that may be what supplements if they don't have any insurance till the next enrollment period.
Well, the penalty for an individual for this year is $95, but people forget that big word "or." It could be 1% of your income. So if you're making $60,000, the penalty is $600. It's not $95. So a lot of people are confused about that as well. And that's why we want to sit down with individuals. We do have a program in place where we have a couple of individuals on staff that will sit down with individuals, go over their income level, put all the information into the computer for them, and see if they qualify for subsidies, because there are subsidies out there. A lot of these individuals don't know if they make less than 400% of the federal poverty level, they're entitled to a subsidy. But again, there goes the uncertainty, the concern. They're afraid to provide the information because they don't know what will happen. And in terms of businesses, I just want to throw this in there. If you have less than 25 employees, some businesses were entitled to subsidies, tax credits. And again, because of the lack of communication or concerns or uncertainty, they did not go onto the website to see whether or not they qualified. And we will do that as well. We will sit down with them, put all the information into the computer, and see if they qualify for the subsidies.
And because some of those costs, I've heard individuals say that it's just unfair because they can't afford to pay what is the out-of-pocket versus what it's valued. It's not even worth it. But then here, $95 or is the or, but that or may be worth it if for every time I have to pay an out-of-pocket or what I'm contributing to it makes a difference. But I guess that's important for us to get those messages out about subsidies or resources that are available to help them.
Sure.
Let's talk about, I guess, some of the steps that you're using to educate the community about the importance of these types of benefits. I know you do a couple of workshops, and we talked briefly about any that ones coming up in October that you have. Any other forum that you use to help to get that educational message out?
Well, we try to work with other chambers as well, because we really feel this is a community-based operation. And we have to reach the community and the only way to reach them is as a group. So we're trying to reach other chambers, and in fact, there's one chamber that handles a lot of the MWBE certification after that process after the certification, and we're going to align with them as well. And I think as a group, we're going to try to get this information out to small businesses and large businesses as well. But small businesses, of course, is our priority. So yeah, we're trying to form strategic partnerships, because I'm only one person, the chamber's only 400 people, but if we form a partnership, we can reach so many more. So we are trying to create some opportunities there as well.
Good. Now, let's talk a little bit about the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce. Tell me about it. Tell me about your role. How does it start? What are some of the things that are going on? Just, you have free reign here and why, where does it cover?
Okay.
To tell me all you can about.
Okay. Well, the Long Island African American Chamber of Commerce covers Nassau, Suffolk, Brooklyn, Kings County, and Queens.
All right, question.
Okay. Yes.
That's pretty big. How are you going to manage and what's going to differentiate? I'll let you share, but that's pretty an intense area, which is good, but how are you going to get that reach and make it effective for some of the things you're probably going to be doing, which is probably, you'll tell me later. Right,
right. Well, our president, Phil Andrews, has a lot of insight, and what he decided to do is to have directors of each county. So we have a Brooklyn director, we have a Queens director, Nassau, Suffolk, and so on. So those people are going to be our representatives in that area, so we can reach that community as well. And that's really, I think, his goal, is to get the word out about what we're doing. We also have been written up in Newsday. I'm sure you've seen the articles. He's getting us a lot of exposure, because the only way to get the word out is to reach them. So if you're in Newsday, you're reaching a certain number of people. And he did an article. He was an executive suite, and he also did an article on minority and women-owned businesses. So that's how we're trying to communicate with everybody. As I spoke before, I told you we're being very proactive in having the MWBE certification classes. We are forming strategic partnerships with some of the government agencies, as I said previously, because they're saying, where are the minority and women-owned businesses? And we want to be able to say, here they are. We want to have a list, a directory that's going to show all of those people who are certified, what they offer in terms of services, and when they have an opportunity for a bid, that they will contact us and we can share that information with our members as well.
Well, that's good because it provides a forum where I guess if you have the resources, you can help to serve as the filter to provide for those bids. And at least you know those opportunities that are there. I think one of the challenges, some services are not something that is always readily needed, pardon me. And that being said, it makes it challenging for you to go and then take on a certification. If you're looking for 20%, what really is that 20% in any of the industries that you really have those fundings or those groups that you're trying to get or reach out to? A lot of them are usually goods versus services. Some
Correct.
Services, but it's predominantly goods.
Well, construction is huge right now because of with Hurricane Sandy, there are a lot of opportunities there. The Nassau Coliseum has a project going on. So there are opportunities, but it's mostly in construction. I'll give you a perfect example. I hardly ever see anything come across my desk for insurance benefits. Once in a while, you'll see a voluntary benefit plan that's... but what I did recently, there was a bid out about healthcare reform and training. And what I'm trying to do is partner with a larger consulting firm.
Right.
So I sent them the RFP, and they responded back and said, well, we sent it in, and if we hear anything, we will let you know. So I was proactive in trying to do my own thing, because as I said before, I'm not normal. So I stepped out of the box, and I said, I'm going to do this myself. So when I saw the RFP, I reached out to a couple of large firms, and I think that's what we have to do. We have to be more proactive and really take a role and do our part as well. So that's what the Chamber is trying to do.
Right. I mean, proactive is something that is very critical to businesses today. If you want to be successful, you have to plan, you have to organize, you have to be able to take those risks, and you have to preempt them. You have to look at what is out there and think outside the box, as you've shared several times, to be able to get you to the next step, the next level. And it doesn't matter if you're a small business or not. It is for all businesses.
Correct.
It's even on an individual level. If you're looking for a job, you have to think out of the box. What's going to differentiate me from the next person? And we're competing in a much smaller economy. Anything else you'd like to tell us about some of the initiatives for the Chamber or anything else that's going on? How active are the other areas that it's rolling out? Are those already going, or they're still in development stage?
Yes, we are in the process of, well, we just had our installation in May of 2014, which was a tremendous success. We're planning the same thing in Brooklyn. We'd like to have an inauguration in Queens as well, so that we can introduce the director of those areas to that community. And the word is out, though. People know that we're out there, as I said, because of the media exposure, as well as the actions that we're taking. And I'm very excited, like I said, about where we're going as a chamber.
All right, let's change it a little bit and see if we can talk about small businesses. And you've been in business for a significant number of years. You've received several influential awards. And tell me, I guess before I go on to small business, tell me about the LIBN, because you really had some really, 50 most influential women on Long Island, and for you to be the award recipient, that's awesome. Tell me about what took you to that point and what that means.
Well, again, Dr. Graham, I'm not even sure how I got to where I am today. I think it has a lot to do with working hard, work ethics. I don't think I ever give up, and I think that I am truly passionate about what I do. And I think that's what differentiates me from a lot of people. My success has been a result of, I always say I tune into WPLG. That means I work hard, I play, I love, and I give.
All right, I'm going to have to interrupt you here. We're supposed to be going to our next break. Hold that thought. And we'll come back to you.
WPLG.
Right. Again, this is My Business, Your World. You can contact us at 631-481-9124. We'll see you back after the break. Thank you. Welcome back. Dr. Graham here with my guest, Miss Sharon Davis. And before I so rudely interrupted her, let's pick up back from WPLG.
Well, I always say that I have to tune into WPLG because you really need a balance in life, especially when you're in business for yourself. You can really become a workhorse and forget about all the other pieces. So WPLG always reminds me to work a lot, okay? But I also have to play a lot, P. L is to love a lot, and G, to give back, to give to the community. So that really, it gets me balanced, and it helps me get through the day.
Wow, so I have to go do WPLG? Wow,
yes,
tune in for the next episode of WPLG. All right, now, as we're last segment, getting ready to wrap up, let's talk about, I wanted to talk a little bit about small businesses. Because it is so critical. So many small businesses are failing and there's no need for them. There are tremendous economic opportunities that are out there, and I keep talking about getting a message out and taking those risks. Let's talk about, tell us some ideas about the lessons you have learned starting your business and maybe about some of those risks.
Okay, well, you said it great. It's risky. That's the first thing. Setting up your own business is a risky venture. And you have to be clear about what you're going to do. You have to be passionate about that as well. And I always say use your experiences as a wading pool, because when you start your business, you're going to be jumping into the deep end. You need to know how to swim. But you have to go back to what you learned and take those experiences forward with you. So that's one thing that I learned. The other thing is that you have to really plan. A lot of businesses don't plan to fail. They just fail to plan. So you have to do an annual review of your business, look at where you are, look at your budget, set up your goals, put your goals around the house like I do, and read them on a daily basis, and then see where you are at the middle of the year. You need to review them regularly. Okay, the other thing that I talk about that I think you need to do is become a leader and not a boss. A boss very often will drive employees, but a leader develops employees. A boss, when you hear him talking, he always says, I, it's about me. But a leader says, we.
Yeah, no, I team, right?
There's no I in the word team. The other thing that the boss does is he will say, go, you do it. But a leader will say, how can I help you? Let's go together. So I think that's very important, because then you're building a team that has ownership and likes working with you. You're creating an environment where everybody wants to go. One of the other things that I learned is that I have to live in the now. A lot of businesses look for opportunities in the distance. I believe there are opportunities right there where you are.
Now, how do you identify those? Because oftentimes it's those, because it's so competitive in almost most sectors. There are a couple that still have some really good market niche. How do you identify those? I don't really identify them, to be perfectly honest with you. I just let go. And I really start to attract certain businesses, and things will come into your life once you release and let go instead of working so hard and struggling to make things happen. A lot of times you have to just let things happen. And the same way that we met, and I've met so many people in my lifetime, they just come. You attract who you are. Because every business is not going to work with S.J. Edwards. There are some businesses who would rather work with a larger organization or a consulting firm, but S.J. Edwards has its niche. And that's who I attract. So I don't work that hard at trying to find the business. I do, as I said before, I live in the now, and I try to attract what makes sense for me. Well, I'll let you continue with what your takeaways and sharing with us.
Okay.
But obviously, by planning and preparing and doing all the pieces that you need, they're critical for you to be able to put yourself in that position, because you're still doing the legwork. When you're letting go, it's not. It's just
Right.
the natural inclination. What needs to happen will happen. And I absolutely believe and agree with you, because anything else will be chaotic, and that's what caused chaos. That's what caused liabilities in terms of losing millions of dollars, thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars. Please continue with your takeaways.
Well, the only other thing is that it's work. You have to do the work. It takes work to make it work. There's just no way around that. I mean, even though I said I let go, I still am in my office sometimes till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night. Because there are things that I need to do in order to do the right thing for my client, who will refer me to someone else. So that's another way that I get business is if I'm doing the right thing for you, is there anyone else who can utilize my services that you know of? And they usually, if I do a good job, they will say yes. And they will get on the phone at that point and say, listen, Sharon Davis is here. I need you to talk to her. And that's the way that I have built my business, through referrals and contacts.
Well, relationship is everything. Networking, 80% of how you're going to get any business, 80% all for those who are looking for a job, also 80% of how you're going to get those next job. You have 15 seconds to make that elevator pitch. Most people think it's 30, it's 15, and in 3 or 5 seconds is when you make that first impression.
Okay,
That's
right.
Last. A little bit about backing up to leadership and leading. There are a number of different styles, and you have tons of workshop or training and writing about leadership and what makes it an effective leader. I think it's a combination and a culmination of a number of different things. And as you shared, it's also allowing them to be able to, how can I help you? But I also believe you have to, for the audiovisual, go in, jump in, figure it out. You know, at what cost? Some things may be a little bit more costly, so you put some policies and procedures in place to kind of help in that. But don't have an employee spending 36 hours trying to figure out one thing that would be solved in 30 seconds, and then that payroll that you've hit, whatever the pay rate is, it's that amount of dollar that's hitting your bottom line or taking away from that. It's very, very important for you to have strong leadership and core skills. It's very important to also know what your industry is and be able to go in and deal with those challenges. Our previous guest, you're actually our second, but our first female guest. So look at that. So you're first.
Out of the box again.
To talk about businesses and planning, it's a business plan. We talked about, looking at an outline of a business. At least have something, skeleton, where you can start and something to build on. You have no idea what the tides or the turbulent or what is there. And it is very important to look forward into the future, because that is where you need to be. If there is going to be $3 billion worth of potential revenue to be had in construction in 2015, and I'm in construction, I need to see, if as much as I'm going to be a little dot, I need to figure out, as an existing business owner or an individual who's looking to start that business, I need to find where that is. But you have to build the business, you have to plan, you have to work.
It's a lot of work, and it's risky, as I said previously. And for years, I kept my annual plan in my head, because I am the business. I was a sole proprietor. I know, she's giving me that look. But I did, and I always was very organized, but now I do have to put it down on paper, and I have to look at what my goals are for the year versus what I did last year. Where do I want to be in 2015 versus 2013? I have to have a 5-year plan in order to succeed, and I realized that, but for years, I did keep it in my head.
When did you realize that you had to, and you hit on some critical points where having that 5-year plan, creating something, even if you don't get a finished business plan, you have something, but that business plan give you the forecast, the budgets. A lot of small businesses don't even look at budgets or forecasts. I have one. I work with small, different levels besides businesses, and I have some small clients. They don't even look at projection in terms of what I did last year to what I'm doing now, and what happened. What happened? What grounds do I need to make up? Coming from corporate world, if you don't have it in the budget, you can't get it, and if not, you're going to have to figure out where it's coming from, and then you can get it. Something else has to kind of sacrifice.
Yeah, I think a lot of businesses are afraid to put it down, because once it's down in writing, it's in your face, and you have to address it. And that's the same thing with financial planning. I tell a lot of my clients, we're going to sit down and go over your budgets and what you're doing with your money, and you're not going to be very happy, but we have to address it. So sometimes we have to do the tough stuff. We have to do the tough things.
All right. Well, Ms. Davis, thank you so much for being a part of our show today. We really enjoy it. Again, this is My Business, Your World. I'm Dr. Graham, and you can reach us at 631-481-9124. You can go to our website at www.grahamconsultingandresearch.com. Shoot us an email at info@grahamconsultingandresearch.com if you have any questions for myself, for a company, or for Sharon and S.J. Edwards Incorporated. Until next time, be well.
Cut.
I forgot to thank my team.
You got to thank the team.